I want to tell you all about a bear hunting expedition I had this weekend. Had it not happened to me, I wouldn't believe it. But it did happen to me, and I tell you what, I still don't believe it. Now, some buddies and I had set up, and we've been watching a registered bear bait site for the past couple of weeks. Now, it was just a couple of days before opening season of bear hunting with rifles. I wanted to make sure that all was well for the weekend hunt, so 2 days before, I took a ride up to the station. I loaded up my four-wheeler on the back of my trailer, and I headed out. I made a mental note. I was going to have to put a platform on that trailer so I could load 2 ATVs from the side instead of loading 1 from the back, which is all I could do currently. Well, the bear station was only 50 miles from my home, which is not too far. 7 of the last 10 miles was up Rocky Canyon Road on a bumpy dirt road, and the last 3 are into the wilderness along a 4-wheel trail. As I approached my destination, I saw that the truck was overheating. Well, this put a little hiccup in my heart, but I made it to the selected parking spot, and I parked the truck. I figured I'd let it cool down, and I took the ATV out, and I'd go up to the bear bait site while the truck was cooling off. Wasn't much I could do right now while it was hot anyway. Now, I didn't bring my rifle with me this trip because it wasn't hunting season yet, but I did pack my .22 caliber pistol, just in case I came across a snake or small varmint that needed my special attention. I made it to the station, and I switched out them SD cards on the game camera, and when I got home, I'd check to see if we had any visitors that had come to our station. I then drove back to the truck, and I checked the fluids. Well, I was a little bit puzzled because the radiator reservoir was full. Well, anyway, I started back down out of the mountains, and the truck overheated again. Put it into neutral, coasted down this old dirt road, made it to town. I made it to a gas station and parked. I was going to go inside and use the facilities when I remembered I was still wearing my .22 pistol. Well, I took it off to lock it up in my box before I went inside, and my heart sunk. The bullet clip was missing out of the gun. Somewhere on my 4-wheel trip, I had popped the bullet clip out, and it was lost. Well, not much I could do about it now, so I let the truck cool off, and I opened up the radiator. It was dry. The reservoir was still full. Well, I had a clogged line between the radiator and the reservoir. Filled the radiator, and I made it home. I was sure it was the thermostat that had gone bad. The next morning, bright and early, I went ahead and put the platform on the trailer, and I installed a new thermostat. Started the truck up, and now the thermostat leaked. Well, that meant I didn't seal it properly. So I got some of that liquid seal stuff for high temperature, put it on the thermostat, got it all put together, and then I read the instructions, which said, do not operate your vehicle for 24 hours to allow the seal to cure. Well, this was going to put a little in my trip, because in 24 hours, we were supposed to be on the road going up to the mountains. Well, while that was drying, I took the opportunity to go to the local parts store to replace my gun clip. Walked to the gun station, and there I was, face to face with a wall of gun clip. If there was one, there was 100. Well, after searching what seemed to be like for hours, I asked for help. The clerk was very polite, looked over the sea of gun clips on the wall before me, he smiled and said, well, we don't have the one you need. Out of 100 or more gun clips, I ultimately went home, hoping that on the trip I would find my missing gun clip nestled in some grassy knoll, just waiting for me to find it and claim it once again for my own. Well, that never happened. It's still lost. I went home, pulled the trailer up to the side of the curb and attached it to my truck, pulled out my brand new 4-wheeler ramps, and went to load my 4-wheelers up onto the trailer. Well, the platform wasn't too bad. It was right next to the curb, and I'd never used those kind of ramps before, but it was fairly easy, and I loaded up. The next morning, first thing, my buddy arrived. We loaded everything up into the truck. I started the truck. Thermostat didn't leak. So, hallelujah, we were on our way. Went to the gas station, arrived at the gas station, got out to go ahead and gas up the truck. And my buddy said, Rick, I think we've got a problem. It's raining underneath your truck. Radiator fluid was pouring out, and I asked him, I said, could we please just go back to the house and use your truck? So he agreed. Went back to the truck, unloaded everything from my truck, loaded it back into his truck, disconnected the trailer from my truck, connected the trailer to his truck. And that's when he asked me, he said, would you mind driving the truck? He says, I don't know about taking this trailer up there with me driving, having never driven it with that platform that you put on it, and having 2 ATVs on it instead of 1. Well, sure. I said I would do it. We reached as far as Boise, and my buddy noticed that one of the tie-downs had come loose from the ATV. So he suggested we pull into a parking lot so I could correct the situation. Well, I pulled into a parking lot before I realized it was the exit to the drive-thru of a bank. Well, luckily it wasn't open yet, but what could I do? I couldn't go forward through the drive-thru backwards. There was no room. And I couldn't turn around because it was kind of like a one-lane thing. So I had the privilege of backing up into a one-way street, hoping to get it right the first time because I wouldn't have a second chance, and then driving off up into the hills. Well, when we arrived, I parked the truck and the trailer on the side of the road. I took out the ramps. As I placed the ramps on the side of the trailer, I almost threw up with sudden fear and shock. The roadway leaned away toward the side of the road, and the ramps were on now a really steep grade. It looked to me like I was going to have to back down those ATVs across the Grand Canyon on skinny little 6-inch ramps that I was just sure were going to collapse and plummet me into my ultimate death. Well, I was with my hunting buddies. What could I do? I sucked it up, held my breath, gritted my teeth, closed my eyes, and I backed the ATVs down, narrowly escaping death without accident or injury. We loaded the camping gear onto the ATVs and we went to ride off into the wilderness. Unfortunately, my ATV would not start. Now, I am the only person in the world capable of flooding out a vehicle on dry ground in the middle of summer on a high desert, but that's exactly what I did. Well, I became so frustrated I tried to turn it on, and I tried to turn it on, and I tried to turn it on, and I tried to turn it on until I killed the battery. Well, the little ATV also had a battery, but it also had a pull cord. So if I went ahead and switched out the batteries, we could use the battery to start my ATV and use the pull cord to start the small ATV. That's what we did, but I was secretly trying to figure out how I could use the small ATV to throw a rope across the trailer, pull the big one back onto the trailer so we could get it home. Well, just when I was about ready to think we were going to have to do that, my ATV started. Well, we drove the remainder of the trip out to the campsite and we began to unload. As we unloaded, my buddy started setting up the tent and I took the rifles out from the cases and picked up the lockbox and was ready to put the shells into the rifle. To my dismay, the key was missing out of the lockbox. Somewhere along the line, it had fallen out. Well, I decided to set up camp, pitch tent then, and then the two of us would take one of the ATVs back along the route and search the ground. I drove and Jonathan rode, trying to be the lookout for the key. We made it all the way back to the truck without finding that accursed bane to my existence. I asked Jonathan to unlock the truck so we could go ahead and look inside. Perhaps the key had fallen out in the truck. His words were like daggers in my heart. I could not believe it. He said, I didn't want to lose my truck keys too, so I put them in the tent. We returned to camp. I decided to give Jonathan my .45 pistol, which had 6 rounds in it in the case. I would drop him off at the hunting blind. I would return to the truck with the truck keys, search inside, and hopefully find the keys to the lockbox, which I did. Returned, got the guns, loaded the guns, and went to the hunting blind. We sat there the rest of the day until 7 p.m. without one sign of any bear. Well, we decided to go back to camp. When we got to camp, Jonathan made built a big campfire, as a matter of fact. And I asked him, why are you building a campfire this big? Well, his answer was, I didn't think it was going to be this cool. I didn't bring a coat. Well, in fact, the only thing he brought was a lightweight t-shirt. Now, I was prepared with a long-sleeve heavy hunting shirt. Y'all heard the expression I would give him the shirt off my back? Well, yep. That's exactly what I had to do to keep Jonathan from freezing to death in what had to be 60-plus weather. I prepared barbecued rib stew in the Dutch oven for supper, and I have to admit it was pretty amazing. Afterwards, we sat by the fire planning tomorrow's events. We went to bed. It was then that I realized that our tent had been placed on top of what had to be every single stone on the mountainside, and they had all decided to have a rock family reunion beneath my sleeping bag. So, while Jonathan drifted off to bed in his own sleeping bag uneventfully and having nice dreams, I tossed and I turned on a bed of quartz and granite landfill. Now, Jonathan has to make a phone call every morning at 4 a.m. to check in for personal reasons, and so at 4 o'clock we woke up. We drove back out of the wilderness until his cell phone had service. We went to start the ATV. The key was gone. This was becoming bizarre. We had lost 2 keys. Well, we began searching with flashlights, and we found the key exactly where I put it inside the tent, just to make sure we wouldn't lose it. I just forgot that I'd put it there. So, drove off, made his phone call, came back, went back to bed to get another couple hours of sleep. Well, he fell asleep, and I just tossed and turned again on my rock pile. So, I got up, and I made breakfast, made a bacon and eggs. Well, when Jonathan got up, we went to get on the ATVs, and I noticed we had a flat tire. Somewhere in the middle of the night, on our 4 o'clock run, we had run over something that flattened the tire. Well, I was doggone if I was going to go home without hunting. So, we decided we were going to go ahead and load up together on one ATV, drive out to the blind, and we were going to go ahead and hunt. You know, I think it was an act of God in retrospect, who obviously had a sense of humor that had orchestrated the entire thing for his own amusement and for his pleasure. Well, once the sun had risen high in the sky, we knew we weren't going to shoot anything, so we went ahead and changed out the SD cards on the cameras one more time so I could go ahead and review them and see if anything had showed up during the night. Went back to camp, loaded everything up. Yeah, we went back to the truck. Well, back at the truck, my heart sunk again, because now I had the task of driving the ATVs back on the untrustworthy ramps across the Grand Canyon onto a trailer which was slanted to the opposite side on a 3-wheel 4-wheeler because of the flat tire, while hoping I didn't go too far, slide off of the other side, and get lost in oblivion. Well, I managed once again to go ahead and conquer my fears, and I loaded up the trailer. We headed down the mountainside, and we came across a stranded motorist parked in the area of the place where the day hikers and the day bicyclists went up and down Rocky Mountain Canyon. Man wanted me to pull in next to him to give him a jump start. Well, his car was in such a position that had I drove in, I'd have to back out across the road to a canyon on the other side. Well, I told him it would have been easier and wiser for us to just push his car out and then jump start it in the road. The man started arguing me. He started yelling, saying, why couldn't I just park my truck next to his car? He wasn't about to push his car. Well, I was about ready to get into the car and drive away when his buddy said, well, let's just do it. So they went ahead and I helped push back his car. We pushed back his car, jump-started his car, then without even thank you, they got into their car and they drove away, leaving us to go ahead and finish our trip on our own. Well, when we arrived back to unload things at our house, I was finally glad that we had finished our adventure. I had forgot to secure the battery on the 4-wheeler when we switched about. Somewhere along the bumpy road, on the trip down on the mountainside, our battery jumped out of place on the 4-wheeler, ripped the cables right off of the cable holders on the end for the battery attachments, and was laying on its side underneath the ATV. At least it wasn't lost. So I figured I'd leave it. So the next day, went inside, was going to check the SD cards, take a shower, and go to bed in my water bed, which I was sure did not have any rocks underneath it. You would not believe what I saw on the SD card. You remember me telling you that we went back to camp at 7 o'clock? Well, there on that date and time stamp, at 7:42 exactly, a family of 3 bears came out of the wilderness, walked down, ate supper at our bear bait station. I think they laughed at us, then turned around and went back into the wilderness. What a night. Well, I was just exhausted. Pulled all the stuff out of my pockets, went to put it on the table. There was that quarter I found by the fireplace. I went to look at it, and I cleaned it up, and I found it to be a 25-year-old quarter. And it was still just an old quarter, but I looked at it and I smiled, thinking, well, this is one of the most eventful outings I have ever had. And even though it's only 25 cents, I got a 25-cent trophy to remind me of one of those trips that I'm sure I'd be talking about for years and years to come.